Uh, so today's guest is from the wrong side of the Pennines, but we won't hold that against him because he's one of my great mates in the game. He's had really good career so far, with success in all three formats, but in particular in T20, his record's amazing. And even had a gig for the Melbourne Stars lined up a couple of years ago before a back injury ruled him out of it. This winter, he made his England debuts in T20 and 50 over format, and being in the Test squad as well, and was probably a good chance to make his debut in Sri Lanka before the tour got cancelled because of COVID. So, welcome to the show, Matt Parkinson.
Cheers, mate. I'm absolutely buzzing to be here.
There we go. That intro went all right. I thought I'd yipped it, but
Good man. The spin badges are together.
Yeah. So, mate, I just want to start out right at the start of your spinning journey, I guess. So, how did you get into spin bowling? Were you and Callum, your twin brother, if anyone doesn't know, who plays at Leicestershire, were you bowling spin together? Was it your dad with him bowling spin? What were kind of the big things for you?
Yeah, probably a pretty token story, really. My dad was like a club leg spinner. Played a bit of like Lancs 19s. Decent club cricketer, I think. Never actually seen him play a great deal. He bowled googlies, no leggies. Absolutely complete opposite to me. But yeah, I think probably just picked it up from him and messed around with it a bit. And probably the earliest memory is being told not to bowl it at school, and then probably persisting a bit more because of that. Yeah, with my brother, it's completely different. He was a fast bowler, so he only started bowling spin when he was probably 16. Yeah, similar with just the thought of him being too short to be a quick bowler. But yeah, just started out at school and been asked this question a lot. I don't really have any memory of being inspired by anyone.
Apart from Stewie, obviously.
Yeah, Stewie, I'm Team Stewie, but that only came about when I was 20. Yeah, I think I was too young for the Ashes 2005, but it must have affected me somehow. Loved it from the age of probably 9 years old, and then carried on through the Lancs age groups.
Sweet. And especially you talked about, Callum changed at a certain age, start bowling spin. Did you share a lot of information between you? And do you think Having Callum there helped in terms of obviously playing cricket together and practicing together, but also sharing kind of little nuggets of tips and stuff?
Yeah, I think it helped. Being from Lancashire, we had a very strong age group set up at the time, and we were surrounded by good spinners. You might not know one of them. He's called Mo Abid. He was on the academy when I was quite young. Matty McKinnon from Derby, Matt Critchley from Derby as well. So to have those three in direct rivalry with you, whilst also sharing the journey with Callum, probably helped me a lot. The thing with Callum probably starting spin, it made me realise probably how good I was at the time. Probably sounds a bit cocky, but when you're 16 and you watch someone try and pick it up for the first time, you realise how tough a skill it is. And yeah, that probably reinforced my sort of confidence in my ability, and that I was probably ahead of most of my peers at that time. But yeah, having him in probably not direct competition, but yeah, learning with him and almost helping Callum, which I had to do. I was captain the under 17s when he first started bowling spin, and it was almost like babysitting a little bit, trying to help him get up to speed and yeah, like I said, probably reinforce the confidence in my own skill, really.
But in terms of during those when you're really young, did you find that it was just going to the nets and bowling a lot, or watching people on TV? How did you kind of learn and improve when you were a lot younger?
Yeah, probably bowling loads, really. I think that's probably a key when you're young, to repeat it thousands and thousands of times. And you'll probably know we did the Brian Johnson Memorial, didn't we? Did you do that? Yeah,
I did that when I was at uni, actually. So I did.
Yeah, I just think that was fantastic. Got all the county age group spinners together every Thursday, and like I said, being in direct rivalry and doing the different drills that coaches have in place for you and seeing where you are compared to people who are, I don't know, 3 or 4 years older than you, probably inspires you to get better. And probably when you're younger, it is just absolute repetition and probably sticking to basics. Probably not bowling a googly too early, not trying to bowl a slider too early, and making sure you've nailed, or you've almost nailed, your leg spinner by, I don't know, 16, 17, and then you can probably look to your variations then.
Definitely. So is there any skills, drills in particular that you did that helped you kind of nail the basics that you're talking about?
I think you've probably seen me do them. I still do them now. Probably big one for me is base position. So I bowl a lot from the crease. I feel, and I've been told this a lot, that if you can get pace, spin, some momentum from the crease, if you add a run up to that, that's only going to make it better. I think if you get your crease position spot on, and you get a decently strong action that can be worked with and coached, then I think you're in a decent position.
Definitely, mate. I think I'd completely agree with that. Like you're saying, the bowling from base. I think it came a lot from Terry Jenner when he came over and did stuff with young spinners, ECB, and that's like same as you. Like that's something I do a lot. Even now, like in the warm up, just kind of starting your day's work. That's kind of a good way to get you going. So we're going to skip through quite a bit. So I think, obviously went on to play England 19s, all that kind of stuff. But we're going to skip through specifically to when you're first to pro at Lancs and sign your first contract. Like, what did that feel like to sign your first contract and become a professional cricketer?
Obviously amazing. Something you work towards from sort of the age of 9 and 10. Wasn't expecting it when it came about. I was still very young. I was only 17. I got signed with Saqib and Hasib. So, obviously a fantastic feeling, and obviously getting the opportunity to work with Gilo then as well as head coach was awesome, and probably didn't set the world alight in my first sort of year, 12 months on the staff, but just being around the sort of the squad then, and I think our squad's changed a lot, like the teams that you've been involved with. Back then, everyone seemed so much older and so much scarier. I think that was something to do with Gilo being head coach. But having the chance to work with him in the 2015-16 winter, probably his last real season as a coach then, was awesome, and probably made me probably the bowler that I am today, with probably a bit more knowledge of the basics that I didn't have at the time. Obviously, it's been fine-tuned by a few coaches since 2016, but to have the chance to work with someone like that was fantastic.
Definitely. So we've spoken in depth a lot before about the kind of stuff that you changed and maybe what type of bowler you were before and what type of bowler you see yourself now. Like, what things exactly did you change, and how did that kind of transform your bowling?
I think with every coach I've worked with, it's always been, there was a starting point and then you get somewhere with a coach, and then often with spin coaches you pick up with another spin coach. They pick you up where other coach left you off. And I think the best thing about working with Gilo was that I literally had no action. I just waddled in and somehow managed to get a leg spinner down there. Obviously been very successful in age group cricket, but I think he saw something that needed fixing. My alignment was all off, and that's something that took a long time to get right. We only really touched the surface with Gilo, but it made me selectful in a first team environment. I used my front arm a lot more. Like I said, my alignment, I went from running very wide, almost the sexy leg spinner, where you see I'm running in off a big angle. And
obviously all leg spinners are sexy, but I know what you mean.
I went from really wide on the crease and everything going down leg and big, not really a big spinner of the ball, to within 3 or 4 months I'd come bolt straight and I was spinning it a long way. And I think that's something I've continued to monitor, and I'm probably halfway between the two currently. But something that started with Gilo and was still in progress with Jeeton this winter.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. And then like you mentioned, like change your action a little bit. Do you think sometimes for young spinners or any spinners, it can be like a risk making technical changes?
Yeah, definitely. It's always nerve-wracking when you rock up to the winter and the first session they're going, well, no, your action's not right. And that was something I used to dread every winter as a kid. I used to be so nervous for the first bowl of the winter, thinking, oh, why, if I've not like forgotten how to bowl really. But I think it's something that as you get older, you get more understanding of your action. And it probably took me, honestly, till my winter with you in Sydney and Stuart McGill to actually get a decent understanding of my action. I was almost winging it, still going off the knowledge that I had off Gylo 2 years prior, and didn't have any knowledge before that. It was just literally enjoy bowling leg spin and try and get it down the other end, really. So yeah, my advice to young bowlers wouldn't be to worry too much about that. Obviously, if a coach points out something worthwhile, then absolutely, but it has to be natural. And if once you get that natural understanding, then you can work from that, I think. But yeah, it took me a long time. I'm still working on my action, my alignment now, and that's 6 years on.
Yeah, I think they're two great points there, Parky. I think like when I talk to young spinners, it's that almost trying to be a sieve mentality that you can't listen to everyone, but you take in the information, you filter out what stuff works for you, and also saying that you're still a work in progress and learning now. Like I think that's also a massive point for spinners and all cricketers really, is that you can always get better and you're always fine tuning or learning new skills. So I think that's two great takeaways there. So skipping forward again, it's actually something I was there to witness, although running the drinks on that day, was your county championship debut for Lancashire. So against Warwickshire, you took 5 for 49. I just wondered, like, to come straight in and take a 5 for, like, what was your mindset to enable you to come in and perform at that level straight away?
I think it was just almost being fearless, really, not really understanding where I was at the time, and hadn't played in a long time. I like you actually, I'd probably been carrying drinks for a good 4 or 5 weeks. Didn't play in the T20s, and just almost that fearlessness that I hadn't played in a long time, and there was nothing to lose. And then it always helps, doesn't it, when you get a wicket sort of 6th, 7th ball, and from that moment on, I was fine really.
Yeah, the delays for the sound interruption, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, after my first over, wasn't it? Trotty would have kept. No, I'll get back.
Funny, because normally he doesn't let much stuff distract him. So
yeah, I thought that. Come on, mate. Probably got a bit overconfident actually after that, having bowled so well that game. Didn't go as well in the next 3 games. I didn't play again for another, must have been over 12 months. Till against Warwickshire actually again. But yeah, just loved it really, and very lucky to play at Old Trafford where it spins.
Definitely, I think that's definitely a good place to be playing the cricket as a spinner. Although there's obviously, not the right side of the Pennines, and you're much better off playing for Yorkshire.
Right, Headingley.
So also like going into that game, like and making your debut, like Lancs, then in particular had a lot of like really good spinners, so it's probably really competitive. Like how was that being in a squad with people like Kerrigan, Lily, Parry, and competing for a spot when you're so young?
It was difficult. It was difficult just being in that squad at the time. It was a big squad. We still have a big squad now, but the dynamic of the squad was a lot older, and a lot more players that were probably first team ready, and the first team group was a lot bigger. So it meant you probably didn't get the opportunities that you do now in second team cricket. So I struggled for quite a large proportion of the 2016 season. I remember having a good run in, a good couple of second team championship games. I might have got six against Worcester and bowled really well. But it was almost like a rotation policy. So Kerrigan was in the first team, and me, Aaron Lilly, and Stephen Pyre in the twos. And one week, one of us wouldn't bowl. So being 19, you're thinking, this isn't right. And up to then, all you've had is success. You think, I have to bowl. And that was a massive learner, that you're in a squad and there's only really one spot for a spinner. It's a lot different to fast bowlers, and we had to accommodate 6 or 7 fast bowlers in the second team as well. So I think that was probably the thing that sparked sort of the competitiveness in me to try and out bowl the other spinners and try and get sort of that second spinner spot behind Kegsy. And luckily, when I got my chance against Warwickshire, I took it.
So concentrating on Red Bull for a moment, obviously, you've had a lot of success since then, multiple championship fifers, getting 10 wickets in the match against Sussex last year, being named in test squads like we've spoken about. What is your kind of approach to Red Ball compared to white ball? Like, do you bowl differently in yourself? Do you set different fields? Like, what's your kind of mindset to Red Ball cricket?
Probably always changing, really. I went with the approach this year of being really aggressive and really attacking. I think it helped that I was surrounded by 4 quick seamers. So the pressure was off, really. But yeah, quite a tough question to answer. I bowl very similar in the 2 formats. Obviously, red ball, I'm just trying to be a lot more consistent. But probably haven't played enough, really, to have a sort of set formula for red ball cricket. And it's a question I get asked a lot about, probably lack of chances in red ball cricket for spinners. And I think that's probably part of the reason why I don't really have an answer. Still probably working that out, and that's probably where I fell short this winter on the test stuff. Not having probably the routines and probably the confidence that the lads who have played 100, 120 first class games have, and which is probably different to white ball, where I've played a lot of white ball cricket now, and I know roughly my routines and how I'm going to go about my spell, whereas I'm still probably learning every time I bowl in red ball cricket. Obviously had some success this summer, but it was only 4 games again, and I know, like you, we want to play all 14 games and take 40, 50 wickets. So yeah, tough question to answer. I think I just try and keep it very, very simple. Again, I'm lucky that I play at Old Trafford, so when I do play, it tends to spin a bit there, and yeah, probably in outfield a little bit, and yeah, that's probably why I fell a bit short in South Africa and New Zealand. Probably not had the experience I need, really.
Definitely think I know that we've had these conversations about, as a leg spinner now, like, you actually may have a different approach to season, and a good year isn't taking like 60, 70 championship wickets. Like, when you're still kind of finding your way in red ball, maybe it's just playing 5 or 6 games on spinning pitches and having impact. Like, do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's probably a downfall of English cricket at the minute as well, is the lads that are getting picked on the test trips aren't actually playing a full season. And yeah, at one stage, a good season for me was doing well in the Blast and having a decent one-day cup and hopefully playing a couple of games at the back end of the season, which is what I did this year. And that was enough to get obviously selected on the winter tour. But if that's all you're getting selected for and you do well in those games, and that's the only thing you can do, really. Again, like I said, I would like to play more championship cricket, but most of the time the conditions don't dictate. And however lucky I am to play at Old Trafford where it does spin, however, we have a very good seam bowling attack, and if conditions are leaning that way, then as a number 11 leg spinner, you'd struggle to get selected in April, May, and even June sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's another thing, like, even for young spinners now, like, if you can bat, you obviously make yourself so much more selectable. So
absolutely. You look at Critch, he's obviously a lovely all-rounder, but he gets in as well for his batting, even if he doesn't bowl. And then when it is spinning, he's got a great gig. And that's something that's a work on for both of us, and probably most of the spinners that I can think of, is to make yourself selectable, or as selectable as you can be, really.
Definitely. That's for listeners who aren't aware, that's Matt Critchley from Derbyshire, who we've both spent a bit of time with. So going now on to a bit about, starting to get on the kind of ECB radar. Obviously, the former lead spin coach, Peter Such, kind of must have spotted a bit of talent in you. I know we spent one winter, we went away with the Lions to go and netball, and then the next winter, you went on the ECB scholarship to go and work with Stewie in Sydney that I'd done previously. Like, what were those 2 experiences like, and what were the big things you learnt there?
Obviously, the first trip to Dubai was when the two spin badges met, so that was a great trip. Yeah, I think the first trip was just sort of an eye opener to how good first class cricket is, and how much I needed to improve really. Obviously, hadn't played a great deal at the time, and we were training with the next best of English cricket really. I remember that Lions group was particularly strong that year. So yeah, it was fantastic to spend 4 weeks in Dubai, born at them, and it was just nice to be recognised, I think, for the both of us. Obviously, didn't go to plan after that with a stress fracture, but managed to recover in time for the season, and yeah, was then lucky enough to go to Sydney with you again, and that was probably the trip that set me up really for what I've achieved in the past couple of years, and gave me sort of the foundation of knowledge that Stuart had. To spend sort of 3 or 4 sessions a week with him for 4 months was awesome. And again, to be in direct competition with lads that you're playing with and vying for places with, to see how you were bowling each week and Critch to bowl each week, it does spur you on and think, I need to be as good as these guys, if not better. And yeah, that was a fantastic trip, and it's a shame that they don't do that spin class anymore.
Definitely. I think my main memory of Dubai is just how many overs we'd get through each day. It was absolute carnage, bowling kind of 30, 40 overs every day. You touched on Stewie McGill there, like hopefully we'll get him on this podcast at some point, but you know, what were your main learnings from Stewie? Like, what were his kind of mantras, I guess, that you took away from that?
I think he just gave me a better understanding of my action. Probably took what I was working on with Gilo in terms of alignment, use of my front arm, to another level really. Didn't quite iron out all the alignment issues that I had, but it was I found it quite tough because we were practicing during the week, but then we were in game mode at the weekend. So I think it took me longer for the things that I was learning to groove into my action than it would do if I was spending 6 months at home. I think I'd work on some things and then I'd go to a Saturday game and I wouldn't do them, which was fine. And I think that's a thing that all spinners, young spinners, have to realise, is that if you do something the week before, it isn't going to go straight into your action. It might take months, it might take a couple of years. But yeah, I think I'm actually doing things now from Stewie that I didn't actually ever think I would be able to do. So yeah, my alignment's now a lot better. I'm injury free, touch wood. I use my front arm a lot more. Yeah, just probably the basics that he wanted me to do, that looking back, he must have thought I was rubbish because I didn't do any of them. But I like to think 2 years down the line that the things I'm doing now are the things that he would have wanted me to do.
That's good. I remember you two having some interesting conversations at times about, you know, where you're at and stuff. So you spoke about after going to Dubai, net bowling at the Lions, like having a stress fracture, and then, you know, you also, I guess the winter after we went to Sydney, got a gig to play for the Melbourne Stars in the Big Bash. And unfortunately, you got injured again with your back. Like, you know, how was that coping with those 2 injuries? You know, do you think maybe that period where you went through missing out on cricket, like, do you think that has an impact on your approach now or anything like that?
Yeah, I think looking back, I did nothing different after my first stress fracture. I used to, you know what I used to do this thing with my feet where once I followed through, my hips were heading towards fine leg, my top half was heading towards the stumps. And that meant that my feet crossed over, which obviously puts pressure on your lower back. I just thought that once I recovered, you don't really get it again. So obviously managed to have the whole of the 2017 season and the whole of the 2018 winter and season. So I was quite lucky in a way that I managed to get 3 full seasons, 2 seasons and a winter in before it happened again. Obviously devastating to miss out on the Big Bash and to have not played in that competition still 2 years on hurts me every day.
Yeah.
Very lucky to have managed to have ironed out those flaws in my action. Worked very hard with the Lancashire second team coach, Chris Benbow, last winter. He invested so much time in me. Probably took me from an absolute depths of despair really to oh, well, no, we're actually doing this. It's actually slowly getting in. And I remember once I thought I'd ironed it out, I played a couple of games in Dubai. This is March 2019. So I've been doing this same thing since I must have been 13. So gradually, obviously, it just becomes ingrained in you. And I thought 6 months of work, I'll iron it out. Bowled 5 overs against the United States.
As you do.
As you do, yeah. We got beat as well. Bowled 5 overs against the USA. And it was fine. And then I remember my next 5 overs, I got really angry and really in the competitive zone. Got a couple of wickets, actually bowled nicely. But reverted back to what I'd been doing. And I'm thinking, oh no, this is just a hide into nothing, like all this work for nothing. So we then play a T10 game against Surrey, which is when I acquired said chin scar. Mark Storman hit a half tracker back.
There's nothing wrong with getting hit on the head, mate, when you're...
No, there's not, obviously. Mine wasn't nowhere near as bad as yours. Hit back, hit me on the chin. From that moment, I reckon I've only done my bad follow-through 10 times. It's almost like being hit in the head. Click something in me that I don't do it anymore.
Okay, so all young spinners listening, make sure you try and hit one. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was just a fear, almost a fear thing, wanting to get into a position where I'm ready to catch anything that comes back at me. It was almost a panic trying to get through my action into my delivery. And it's something that Jeetan speaks about a lot, Jeetan Patel. Don't rush from the start of your run-up to finishing your action. It has to be a smooth transition, and that's something that I'm still working on today, not getting too excited when I get to play on a spinner. I don't run in too fast. And again, that's something that Stuart McGill said as well to us about the same run-up every time. Have your momentum, don't rush it. And I think all these different incidents and coaches has led me to, fingers crossed, I'm in a good space now where I'm injury free and I've got a half decent action.
You spoke about the kind of what Stewie said about the rhythm there, the action. Him talked to me about kind of having like a cadence, and him saying like 400-meter runners kind of listen to a track they get made of like the beat of their footsteps, and he says spinners should be the same. Like it should be so ingrained that rhythm. So it is quite interesting. I was going to talk about it later, but I think you brought it up, so say it now. So someone else that we've both had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with is Jeetan Patel. How did you find working with him this winter for the first time?
Yeah, it was awesome. Bit nervous actually at first. Just obviously a big character, isn't he? And when you play against Warwickshire and he's bowling and you've got Ambrose and you used to have Ricky Clark at slip, I'd genuinely be like in awe of how good he was. And he won't mind me saying, but I even used to speak to him about the spit that he did after he'd bowl, where he'd stick his tongue out and go. But yeah, someone I've watched for years. I mean, I used to watch all the Pro 40 games, and he was obviously he's an awesome bowler, and he still is. And to form the relationship I did with him was fantastic. And I think it's nice because he can relate to our careers, having had an international career himself and probably a stronger domestic career than his international career, and probably become a better bowler the older he's got. I don't think he'll mind me saying that. So yeah, it's nice for him to understand that the things that a young spinner's going through, you don't always get that from other coaches through no fault of their own. They just don't understand what it's like to be a young spinner, really, or a spinner in general. So yeah, to form that relationship and to have him only a phone call away is awesome. And yeah, didn't get too technical really with him. Again, a couple of minor things. I like to think that my action was in a better place when he found me than it had been with the likes of Gilo and Stuart McGill and Peter Such. They had sort of a more raw pick up, whereas I like to think, although it's nowhere near perfect, it was in a better state when Jeetan found it. But yeah, just great to work with in terms of the tactical side of the game. It was awesome that he was in South Africa for the whole thing, and it would have been amazing to work again with him in Sri Lanka for a bit longer. I like to think that I improved under him, and if we do get a chance to play Warwickshire, it'd be nice to bowl.
Could be an interesting battle. He doesn't really leave much in the tank when he faces spin. So
no. He's in there though. He's in there. I've got him out before. He's got me out as well. He's got me out a couple of times.
So we're going to talk about T20 and white ball in a minute, but before that, I just want to talk about the kind of variations you have. So you've already mentioned a slider. Is there any other variations you have? And kind of I think that's your slider is something for me that massively goes under the radar. Everyone sees you as kind of a big spinner, but you actually do have a really good slider as well. So without blowing too much smoke up the air, how do you bowl your slider?
So almost it's just a back spinner, so your wrist doesn't come through at the same angle. You almost turn it into yourself, and almost like an undercutter. Again, I struggle with a flipper. I found my fingers are a bit too small for a flipper. But yeah, something that I've been able to bowl luckily since probably about 14 or 15, and I actually remember I used to swing it miles when I was about 14. I used to get a brand new Duke's ball and just ball arrows really. But yeah, I'm very lucky that I can rely on that ball, especially in white ball cricket, as we're going to get onto. And yeah, probably just to Google as well that I've improved, and I'm hopeful we can spend some time together this summer, so you can see it again. But yeah, just those three really. Nothing major. I'm quite lucky. The grounds I play at, I get natural variation anyway. So probably something that as I get older I need to improve on. And I think I found that when I went away to South Africa and New Zealand really, and that's something the press picked up on actually. So yeah, something I work on really for me.
So talking about white ball and I guess T20 in particular, your record at the moment is 65 wickets at 15 with an economy of 7.2. That's pretty remarkable numbers. What's your like us with Red Bull, what's your approach and mindset for T20? What kind of things do you try and focus on?
My real focus in white ball is wickets. So I like to think I bowl quite a nice length in white ball cricket, and the pace I bowl is, if they're not going to run at me really early, or if they're not massively confident, I find I'm massively in the game with the length and the pace that I bowl on most wickets. And that's something I was a little bit nervous about when I went to New Zealand, and seeing how it would translate almost from playing in the Blast and to obviously the international stage. Obviously still, again, a massive work in progress. I've only played about 40 games, so still learning on the job really. But yeah, just almost back myself to spin it on most wickets, and almost play with my pace and length really, isn't it? And if there is no secret formula, if there was, I'd think I'd be playing for England in the IPL. So yeah, just mess with my lengths and my pace really, and like you said, I like to think I've got quite a good slider, so it's something that keeps the batsman honest really. I found lots of batters have tried to sweep me a lot. I've had some success there. Yeah, there's obviously a couple of players everywhere that you dread bowling at, but yeah, I like to think I've gone okay when I've played. What about you? Are you any different?
I think for me, the whole mindset Stewie has of just bowling your best ball, no matter what the format or what the situation. I'm a massive believer of that. Especially to right-handers, I will predominantly just bowl leg spinners unless there's a really short boundary on one side, or there's something I've watched analysis where I think, that's not the best ball to bowl. But I think against lefties, it does change a little bit. You touched on trying to, now you googly, for me, I'd probably bowl in T20, probably about 50% googlies, 50% leggies, just to mix it up and try and spin it away from them a bit more. But I think in general, the pace and stuff I try and bowl on red and white ball is exactly the same for me. So one thing that was hopefully going to be this summer, but now probably going to be is getting moved to next year, is the 100. I just wondered, comparing your approach in T20 to the 100 and the chance of, maybe bowling 2 5-ball kind of sets back to back to maybe bowl 10 in a row. Have you thought about how you might bowl in 100 and how that might be different to T20?
I haven't really thought about it. It's probably very similar, if I'm honest. Being in the north, because of the black, you do tend to play lots of games that aren't 20 overs because it rains all the time. So yeah, probably like I said, keep it quite simple. Fingers crossed the captain doesn't come to me to bowl that 10 ball over on a flatty. But yeah, again, just keep it real simple. It's still obviously a 2020 game. I'm guessing they're going to try and whack every single ball for six. So yeah, I'm obviously mad keen to play in it, and it's a competition I was very, very excited to take part in. But yeah, probably my method wouldn't change a great deal. I've played a fair few games that are less than 100 balls, so I guess you're just expecting to be it for maybe two more sixes a game. But yeah, I think you've got a similar method to me. Is that the batsmen come harder, and there's more chances of wickets.
Yeah, definitely. So just going back to this winter, I guess, obviously, amazing to make your England debut in two forms, like you said. I just wondered, like, over the course of the winter, was there, what were the main things you learned? And say, like, if someone now is about to start their international career, like, is there anything you would say or like advise them specifically to do?
Again, tough question.
Sorry, mate.
I think the main thing I'd say to myself, not to someone else, but no. The main thing I'd say to myself going back to October is probably don't read everything that's written about you. Because at first it's exciting, you've been picked for England and all the press is positive. But then you start reading it and you want to read more, and then you get negative press, and it probably affects you a lot more than it would do if you're a bit more selective with what you read. So I've said this a bit, but I got quite down in South Africa when around Christmas time, and I didn't bowl great in a warm-up game, and then didn't get selected for any of the tests, and then went okay averagely in 50 overs, and to receive quite a bit of negative press, I was shocked really. So yeah, probably that would be the main learning point, would be to almost remove the chance of sort of looking at negative stuff. And Keaton Jennings is a massive one for it. He just deletes all social media whenever he's with England. It's probably something that if I do get selected again, it's something I'd look to do, because I found it really tough when I didn't actually bowl that badly in this one game, but people who weren't there were writing nasty things. And it obviously affects you, but it affects your family as well. And it's tough being away from home with your family reading sort of not nice things about you. On a cricketing side, probably the main learning point was just how ruthless it is. Strength in depth, obviously amazing. Lads coming in at 9 and 10 who average 30 in first class cricket. So obviously the standards higher, and the wickets in South Africa were really flat. And I think probably another thing would be, don't get ahead of yourself. So I did really well in New Zealand in the T20s. Then again, I didn't play in South Africa, so it's proper up and down. And I think the lads that have stuck at it for such a long time, like the England boys that have played hundreds and hundreds of games, they stay very level. And like when Joe Root got 200 in New Zealand, he didn't seem much different to when he got a duck, really. So probably that, try and stay level, and don't get too excited with regards to performance and press, because there's only a bad day going to be around the corner, and you don't want to sort of get attached to reading it, which is something I probably did. And yeah, I got reeled down in Christmas and New Year, really. When I didn't get selected for that second test.
So Parker, just to finish off, if you can give one bit of advice to a spinner, young or old, listening, what would that be?
My advice for a young or old spinner would be a pretty basic one, actually. And it's something that I still need to remind myself a lot, is to keep spinning the ball. The older you get, or if you're playing games and stuff, you sometimes get a bit in the method of just trying to place the ball there, and it's something that I've been guilty of in the past, and probably still will be in the future, is trying to place the ball there and not fully give it everything. It's something that all spinners face, I think, and probably my one bit of advice would be just be really try and spin the ball as hard as you can, and with as much sort of drive as well. I think especially to a young spinner, sort of 12, 13, 14, you have to spin the ball to get to a decent level of cricket. And if you ever get to the point where you don't think you're doing that, then you need to reassess sort of your basics, really. And that's where it comes back to the basics that we both do, and quite a few of our spinner friends still do, which is your base position. And I think that's probably the best sort of advice I've been given, really.
Brilliant, that's great. Parky, thanks for coming on, mate, and hopefully see you soon.
Awesome, mate. Loved it.